Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for my rational perspective on Chelsea nil, Man City 1, our first defeat of the Premier League season. I've got back from holiday. Today was the first Premier League game I've been to at Stamford Bridge since March 2020, I believe, or maybe even before then. It's been a long time, and of course Chelsea decided to lose today. Yeah, really frustrating day, really underwhelming. Those 12:30 kickoffs can sometimes feel quite languid and not the most energetic, and unfortunately that's how I felt pre-kickoff, and I think the team very much reflected that as we saw today. I think it's a culmination of things today. I think it's Man City being very good, a very good side despite some of their flaws so far this season. I think PEP got it tactically right, and I think their press was very impressive throughout the game. Their energy levels, the way they shut down, I think the avenues for Chelsea to exploit City on the break. I think Chelsea were very poor in possession across the team. I felt the way we just gave the ball away so many times cheaply when trying to get out of City's press, and just generally, our ideas moving forward, I just don't think were that coherent, and I think that ties into number 3, which I think, I haven't said this a lot since he's been Chelsea's head coach because quite rightly we haven't had to, but I do think Thomas Tuchel got it wrong today. I don't want to be captain hindsight because I have to be honest, when I saw the team and I saw the 5-3-2, I wasn't that surprised, to be honest. In terms of looking at that midfield three, what he did against Spurs at half-time, the fact that Mason obviously was not available today for Chelsea, it wasn't that surprising to see Timo and Rom as the front two. I think the issue that Chelsea had was just getting the ball up to them, and that was kind of the big problem throughout the game that you could see at half-time. The issue and the concern for me was 0-0. Yeah, City have not created a lot of chances. Their best one falling to Gabriel Jesus, who skies it over the bar. They've had a few crosses into the box that we've cleared quite well, and you could kind of see similarities between how we'd beaten City before. Very compact, very defensively sound. City have a lot of the ball, but they don't look that incisive. But my concern in that first half was just a lack of creativity we had, the lack of chances we had to break on City. I think as good as we were defensively in the 3 wins against them last season, all of those games had moments before we scored the goal, or the goals in of course the Premier League win, where you could see how Chelsea were going to break them down. There was an idea of when we went forward. The issue was today, and I think it was mainly that midfield three for me where I think the problems arose, mainly as well because of just the lack of, I think, incisiveness and clarity on the ball, giving it away cheaply. But I just felt that front two of Werner and Rom were just so isolated for a majority of the game. I think Timo worked his socks off as he always does, and I think he does deserve credit. But there were just so many times where Werner was given the ball in the places, or at least, to break out from the press, where he looked up and the only option really he had was Lukaku. I remember one moment in the second half when we were trying to break. I think it may have been after Jesus' opener, where it literally was Rom, and Rom was quite distant to Timo, so he would have to put a ridiculous ball, an impossible ball to get it to him, to be honest. And that was the issue. I felt that the midfield three were just not joining, or at least one of them. Was it supposed to be Kovacic? My instinct tells me that Kova, as that 8, as that more advanced state, was supposed to join the attack, but I felt he had a lackluster performance. I think it was similar with N'Golo Kante, who we've seen before with Tuchel, kind of seeing Jorginho drop a little bit deeper and Kante joining the attack. You think back to that Champions League final, he was really breaking through. I think the issue was not having number 1 Mason Mount, who's been essential to Chelsea. I know he hasn't had the best start to the season, but tactically in these type of games, the way he presses from the front, how Chelsea build up and build through defence to midfield to attack, Mason does that. He drops into those pockets of space. He can become a third midfielder, but he also, of course, as we know, has the energy to join that attack. It was also Kai Havertz. Kai in the second half came on. I would have liked to have seen him come on at half time. I do wonder if Reece James' injury maybe prevented that. Tuchel's made changes at half time in I think the previous 2 Premier League games, hasn't he, against Aston Villa and Tottenham, being very proactive as he is as a coach. And I was quite surprised it took him that long to bring Kai on, because personally, just from watching the game, it sort of looked like Chelsea would be hanging on for a point, because we just weren't creating enough. And I think in the end, even with the changes to bring Ruben on, to bring Kai on, and of course in the first half to bring Thiago Silva on, the XG I looked at post-game, and it was kind of my instinct, is one of the worst Chelsea have had, I think, under Tuchel in general. But just for context, the performance at Anfield, obviously we scored in that game in the first half, but given we were down to 10 men for 45 minutes, our XG today was lower than that game at Anfield. And that was the problem. Chelsea, we can be defensively compact at home, and that's a big part of the way Tuchel's Chelsea builds. But you have to have something in attack, and I just felt it was too distant. And unfortunately, I think both Rom, who at times was poor in possession, his first touch, which I know has been maligned in the past, but has been very good, was a little bit off today. And just both of those players, Werner and Rom, really had little support until Kai came on. But even then, you still felt like Chelsea lacked ideas building through City, and unfortunately, it just never was quite there. I do think Reece just defensively here, because I do have some positives. I think there were positives in performances that I do want to pick up before I end today's review. I felt that Reece going off was big because, of course, he offers something at wing back, but especially in that second half as Chelsea were trying to make something happen out of nothing, the ball kept on coming to Dave on that right-hand side where Reece would have been. We know Dave is good. He's already set up a goal, obviously, for a couple of goals for Rom this season, in particular the cross-in for the goal against Zenit. But he's better in sort of that right inside channel position where he's playing as a right centre-back rather than a right wing-back. What you needed was Reece in that position, especially off the back of that brilliant cross for Timo Werner in midweek, where it's going to be a little bit more difficult. He has to get that whip into the box, and Rom and Timo were both in there, of course, added by Kai, and that was never there. So I think the delivery, even when Chelsea could get it into positions where it looked like we could kind of test Ederson, which we barely did today, that was just frustrating over and over. And I think City, absolutely deserved their win, and it should have been more, if not for some brilliant defending by Thiago Silva. I think for me, the key performers, the performers I look at, and I think they will come away from this game looking positive, is firstly Thiago Silva coming off the bench to replace Reece James, kind of a role reversal of the Champions League final where he had to come off injured in the first half. Thiago has just been amazing so far this season, hasn't he? He looks nothing like his age in terms of 37, just turned 37. He saved Chelsea a few times, in particular that clearance off the line from Gabriel Jesus, which kept Chelsea in the game. But I just felt once again just the elegance in it and just the awareness. It's a joy to watch Thiago Silva defend, it really is, because especially live, you really appreciate how he's able to anticipate where the ball was going to go. And it wasn't easy for him today because Chelsea were exposed several times and City looked like they could have scored 2 or 3. So I thought he defended so well. And for me, the strongest back three, the most used back three under Tuchel has been Dave, Christensen and Rudiger. But I actually think the best back three at the moment for me looks like Christensen, Thiago Silva and Rudiger. Rudiger I thought was brilliant again today. He really he's in a form of his career and he doesn't seem to be deteriorating at all. He's at a high level at the moment, and he was getting so frustrated with his teammates in the first half. You could tell that in terms of positioning, looking at Alonso, who was maybe a little bit too advanced or not in a position that Rudiger wanted him to be into. I think that Rudiger was trying to add a little bit of energy into the game. I thought defensively he did everything you wanted him to do in this game, but unfortunately the rest of the performance and the rest of the team didn't really get into positions you wanted to offensively to get something more out of this game and really value and kind of vindicate, I think, Rudiger's good defending, because I think that back three, Christensen had a few moments where maybe he could have done a little bit better, but I don't think any of that back three come away from this game looking bad. I think all of them, especially the two of Thiago and Rudy, were really, really good today. I felt Ruben, who if you've been a long time subscribed to this channel, I've always been a fan of Ruben. And he came on, he had a good performance, didn't he, in midweek? And I felt that compared to all the other midfielders on the day, he really shone. Some of those driving runs that we know Ruben can do, the physicality he has in midfield, driving from deep, which is always his strongest role. A little bit too deep for my liking in this formation. I think you need to have him as a number 8 on that left, but given the lack of time he's going to get this season, it's nice to see him come on in a game of this magnitude. And I think that Ruben did himself no harm today in terms of that. I think that I'd like to see Tuchel give him some more opportunities, because especially if the likes of Cover a little bit flagging, or Kante's fitness issues, or even Georgie needs a rest. Sao Niguez really hasn't got into the swing of things yet, only had 2 games for Chelsea. Ruben looks ready to impact things, and I'd love to see him get some more opportunities if that is a realistic possibility in the coming weeks. So I think Ruben was good. Alonso, I don't think had a bad game, but I think you just once again saw just the way we've exploited City before. It's not only having maybe that third attacker there to assist, say Timo and this season Lukaku. of course, Mason Mount, but also how high we can get those wing backs. You saw the creation of the Champions League winning goal, how high Ben Chilwell was. And just the unfortunate thing about Alonso is, despite his attacking credentials, as we know he can get forward, I think in a game of this level against a team of City's intelligence and what they can do tactically to kind of nullify Alonso, I think you need someone with that more mobility to get back and forth. And unfortunately, I just don't think Alonso was able to impact the game the way I wanted him to. I don't think it's a disastrous result. I kind of felt as the game went on, I couldn't really moan because I could see where it was going, and I think Chelsea were quite lucky for it only to be 1-0, to be honest. I think it's a bit of a wake-up call maybe for Tuchel in the sense of being that defensive at home. I think we needed to offer a lot more. I still don't think, in reflection, this game is going to define where the title goes. Not only how ridiculously early it still is in the season, and the fact that City have to go away to Anfield next week, and the fact that Chelsea have had quite a tricky start that they've navigated, I think, quite well. Obviously, I think City go above us now, but it's not a disastrous moment at all. Chelsea have been good for many months now under Tuchel. It's just, how do we rebound from this? We've got a run of games now, games that Chelsea should be winning. I think all the way up to, I'm talking about the Premier League, all the way up until we face Man United at the end of November. These are the games now that Chelsea, for me, are going to define what we do in the Premier League this season, because these are the games coming up now Chelsea have stumbled in, and it's how we respond to that. We've obviously got Juve on Tuesday or Wednesday in the Champions League, which is going to be a big test in the group stage, but in particular in the Premier League, it's how we respond to that setback now and how Tuchel adapts to that. I expect next week against Southampton, I know obviously Juve away is going to be kind of a different game, but I expect against Southampton, definitely moving away from that three in midfield. If Mason is available, if Kai's available, I expect to see more of a natural 3-4-2-1 or kind of, adding 5 in attack, getting more numbers forward, because that was the big issue today. I don't think Timo and Rom we should give up on. It's very early days. I think it can work. I just think they need more help. They need someone along there, whether it's Mason playing deeper, whether it's Kai alongside them. I want to see that a bit more, because I just felt they were so isolated today. Rom was kind of off his game. We couldn't get him into the game enough, which is always going to dent Chelsea's chances in attack. So yeah, a setback. It's a big win for Man City psychologically, but I do expect Chelsea to bounce back given a strong start we've had to the season. Let me know your opinions on the game, the frustrating defeat, in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching. Follow me on Twitter, and I will see you again.